bring in Mr. Sofka. So, with that being said, we are back here live on Facebook.com/LiveNowDT and on YouTube.com/WakeUpCallDT, as well as on the MixLR.com/WakeUpCallDT feed that you have with internet streaming radio, and internet streaming radio also found on WakeUpCallDT.com. So all of that being stated, let's bring in the man of the hour, Mr. Sofka. How are we doing?
I'm doing awesome. How are you, Dan?
I'm doing well. And Mike, for us to, really take a look at everything that's going on here, I don't know if you got to hear any of hour number one, but Trill Williams and Afatu Melifonwu coming out of Syracuse, as well as Andre Sisco, and their numbers. I mean, we could break these down as we go, but Andre Sisco with 136 total tackles, 14 passes defended, 2 forced fumbles, and 13 interceptions, including 1 for a touchdown. His 13 interceptions, he came into this past season leading the nation when he had 12, leading the entire nation of active football players of 130, at least 130 Division 1A FBS schools, and did get injured this year, but is coming in with those types of numbers. And then Trill Williams with his forced fumbles and the interceptions he's been able to do, and kind of takeaways that he's had. Grabbed the ball off of a guy's hand after he caught it, just ripped it out of his hand, like literally wrapped around his body, took the ball and took off. And then a guy like Afatu Melifonwu, who was just insane on the scene from the beginning. These 3 guys are coming out of Syracuse. Have you done any research on any of them? I mean, obviously in the next couple weeks we will, but any thoughts on them at all?
Yeah, I'm still looking. A lot of times with dynasty leagues, they're doing, startups are doing drafts now. Rookie drafts for these dynasty leagues are coming up soon. It's real hard unless you're playing, year-round in these dynasty leagues for you to have a grasp on where you are with these draft prospects, later on. So it does behoove you to get in the game soon. But, I mean, who would have known that, Syracuse would be DBU North? I mean, this is a good situation for Syracuse to be in. I like Melifonwu. Go ahead. It's easy for you to say.
Melifonwu, yeah.
Yeah, I think he has a lot of upside there. IDP, individual defensive play, is where it's at nowadays, if you ask me. I think that most leagues are to a point where they're accepting PPR now. It's a slowly evolving process where people want more and more of a challenge. So if you haven't played IDP, you think you don't care about these guys, but you do care about these guys because, well, they're DBs, and they do everything for their teams. A good one, a highly touted one, will make it easier for the pass rush, and vice versa. The pass rush will make it easier on a DB. So placement as to where these guys get picked is going to be everything.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like you said, who knew that Syracuse would be DBU North? But getting Trill and getting Afatu Melifonwu and Andre Sisco all on the same team, paying dividends for them now. I mean, Syracuse as a team in total wasn't able to put it all together and really win, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But these guys, to be able to be seen through that is important to me, and that's the most important thing to me, that win, lose, or draw, that each of these gentlemen and women that come through these collegiate programs, including my hometown, that they get to play beyond. That's all I want. I mean, yeah, you want to see the team win, and you want to see all that good stuff happen, so maybe I shouldn't say like that's all I want, but at the end of the day, it's about seeing them be successful and seeing them grow and blossom and move forward. That's genuinely what I want for these guys. So we got a lot of stuff coming up, Mike, that we're going to talk about here on today's show, but for the next 2 weeks, you and I are going to go really heavy in the draft, I would imagine. We're going to be breaking things down and talking about prospects and different pieces and whatnot. How excited are you to do this? Because, it's funny, I kind of had somebody say to me last night in passing that, like, they almost expected that we're going to be, going ham in the thing, so to speak. That we're, the expectation that talk and the breakdown of the players and letting everybody know what's going on, that there's an anticipation of that. So how excited are you for that?
Well, I am. This is almost like a Christmas morning type situation here, the draft. I mean, it's exciting. I think it's more exciting for, people that have their own favorite teams. You're always excited to see the Jet band showing up near the front of the draft posses at the draft. I'm sure this year is going to have another different look, even different than we had last year. So, I'm just excited to see where guys are placed. Obviously we know some of the top half of the draft with Trevor Lawrence going to Jacksonville, everybody presumes, and Zach Wilson going to the Jets at number 2, everybody assumes as well. So, but there could be 5 quarterbacks taken in the top 10, and we haven't seen that in a little bit. But that's because quarterback is everything, and I hate to say that. I don't mean to think they're more of a player on the field, but let's face it, the quarterback touches the ball more than half the game usually, or half the game at least, because he's the general. He's the field general. So the quarterback position is paramount, even though there's guys that should be taken in the top 5 that may squeeze out into those 11 through 15, 11 through 19 spots, because these quarterback-hungry teams are moving up with a hunger to get their guy.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, we see that. The quarterback, that's the desirable one that everybody talks about is what's going to happen here. You and I mentioned a guy, and I know that we'll get into it as we go, but, we mentioned somebody that is, picking up now, and this is another topic of conversation last night when I was talking to Jimmy and Kevin over at Pizza Man, that Trey Lance, they're like, who's this guy from North Dakota State, this Trey Lance guy, that all of a sudden, like, this is a guy that people are going to be taking and whatnot. So people are starting to get to know Trey Lance. What are your thoughts on that? Because that's coming up more now where, I'm getting the, who is this guy? Is he really that good? And just like what your thoughts are on, we've talked about him a little bit, and we talked about him actually months ago, but now people are starting to jump in on it.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is he doesn't have a lot of on-field action. He only has, a handful of games that you can look at, but the upside is tremendous. He's only 20. He's real green. He has 17 games, I think it was against all FCS competition, so that kind of puts him behind a little bit. But if you watch the skills he has, I seem to remember a few years ago, similar situation, guy coming out of there who went on and, was part of taking his team to the Super Bowl, and part of his team winning the Super Bowl. And of course, I'm talking about Carson Wentz. So if you look at the excitement that this guy brings to the field, on his field of play, he's not afraid to move. He can stay in the pocket. He can make some impossible throws. And I just think that a lot of teams see a project here. I could see him going to some place that already has a quarterback, and that he can sit on the sideline and adjust or learn. And then if he's thrust into action early, fine. But I don't think he's the type player that Trevor Lawrence is, who's probably only going to be taking a handful of picks above him. I think Trevor Lawrence is more like the Andrew Luck, the most pro-ready quarterback we've seen in a while, whereas Trey Lance is a young upcomer. He's got a high ceiling, he's got a low floor, but it's the excitement of, is he going to make it, is he not going to make it? Because don't forget, a lot of times these guys don't make it. You can even look back to when it was the Goff and Wentz question in 2016, when people were wondering who should go first. Well, both of these guys are traded in disgrace from their teams in the past year. And then you take a look, you go back as far as, Peyton Manning, the Peyton Manning situation with Ryan Leaf. Who's going to go first? Who's the first the past year? Peyton Manning, and then Ryan you take a look, you go back as far as, mathematics. Peyton Manning, the Peyton math at a certain point. So without the pro day, the coaches' analysis and the scouts' analysis is going to be even more critical than ever at one pro day or multiple pro days. And then you're going to have to rely a lot on game film. And that's where Trey Lance falls short. He only has the 17 games, but it's the magic he performs during those 17 games that make him so appealing.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's the roll of the dice, right? And it kind of almost makes you feel like in the Trey Lance situation, it's like Dwayne Haskins, right? Like Dwayne Haskins was a starter for a year, and I don't want to compare the two saying that they're going to end up the same way. I'm just saying, time spent on the field in college and the film of it all. But, it's kind of drafting on potential, right? And the NFL, has the luxury of not having to really do that in the sense of, you got to spend 3 seasons in college. So we get to see what, you see what you believe you're getting because there's a body of work. But in the case, because you got to be at least a junior. But in the case of, Trey Lance, it's a situation of you don't really know. And it's almost like what the NFL does, which is just draft and draft on that potential. So what do you think about that? That there's a little bit of that connection there of, the NBA's draft on potential. Do you like that way of doing it? Because the NBA kind of rolls the dice. If you stay 4 years and you get an education, it's almost like in the NBA, you have to choose between, as a college football player, playing in the NBA or getting an education. In the NFL, when you're a college football player, you can get an education and be a number one pick. It's the juxtaposition there is pretty clear. But in the Trey Lance situation, this is where the line kind of gets a little bit fuzzy because you would be drafting on potential.
Well, it's funny because you mentioned the potential, and you mentioned getting an education. All these guys are going to get an education in one form or fashion, whether it's draft day or whether it's first game, first day of practice, because everyone is fast in the NFL. Even this year, everyone's even faster magically with no scouting combine. All of a sudden, everybody's running 4.3s and 4.4s at the pro days. But what I'm trying to say is, you better be ready. And the teams that are in the better situations, I feel, are the guys in Jacksonville's spot who look like they're going to take Trevor Lawrence. The New York Jets, who look like they're going to take Zach Wilson. And then you get to the 49ers, and you got a Mac Jones. Mac Jones, for some reason, a lot of people were down on him. Well, all he did was the same thing that Tua did. All he did was play at Alabama. You have to be pretty good to play at Alabama here. Oh, he's a system guy because of coaching in Alabama. Well, yeah, the best teams have the best coaches. Oh, well, he had all those great talent around him. Duh. When you get to the NFL, you're going to have great talent around you. So people can come up with excuses. People can be part of the problem or part of the solution. Jacksonville's hoping Trevor Lawrence is part of the solution. The Jets are hoping Zach Wilson is part of the solution, and so on as we go through these other quarterbacks. But what I'm trying to say is, if you're an exec, if you're a GM, if you're a president, if you're a coach on one of these top teams who's taking a quarterback, you better be right. Your job depends on it. The guy you draft here, you're going to be married to. You're forever. You're going to be related to this guy. They're going to mention this guy. They're going to mention the coach as well. They're going to mention the GM. They're going to mention the president. So you have to get this right. You don't get this right, you set your team back another 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, and you look at that in Jacksonville, how many coaching changes there were. Blaine Gabbert to Blake Bortles to Gardner Minshew. And Gardner Minshew I don't think is a problem. But it's just seeing that if every few years you're trying to get another franchise quarterback, then you obviously aren't making the right decision. You shouldn't be looking for a franchise quarterback every 3 to 5 years. And that's what Jacksonville's been doing. And they're doing it again. And hopefully this time it works. Now, I said that we would talk about the teams that are not going to be involved in the voluntary workouts this season. And right now, there's some breaking news kind of coming up here as we go that there is more to add to the story here. So as we look at this and look at what's going on here inside of the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub on 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York. You could go there Monday through Sunday, 7 days a week to dine in. You can also go there for takeout or delivery by calling 315-487-2222. You could support local. That's 315-487-2222. So looking at the fact that the teams that had opted out here of voluntary workouts for the 2020 2022 season, the Denver Broncos, the Seattle Seahawks, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers said that they were not going to report to voluntary off-season workouts. So they're not going to go there. In a statement that came from the NFL Players Association this Tuesday, April 13th, in the statement, the Broncos cited rising COVID-19 positivity rates in Denver and the surrounding communities, as well as a lack of, quote, adequate protocols in place, end quote. Now, the Seattle Seahawks issued a similar statement where they said, quote, the NFLPA has provided us with thorough research and information regarding our safety as players as we enter voluntary workouts this year, especially the benefits on our health and safety from a virtual off-season last year. After considering all the facts, we as a team have decided to make a decision that is uncomfortable but necessary, end quote. Now, the Bucs said, quote, held each other accountable to do the work it took to win during last year's virtual offseason, and, quote, we plan to do that again, end quote. So, that's 3 teams that said, we ain't coming to these voluntary off-season workouts. We'll do them virtually. Well, as of just a few minutes ago, 8 minutes ago to be exact, the Detroit Lions have issued this statement. With the voluntary workout period starting shortly and no acceptable resolution to our union's negotiations with the NFL over comprehensive COVID-19 protocols, we will be exercising our CBA right, which is the collective bargaining agreement, to not attend voluntary workouts. We know our home state of Michigan continues to get hit hard by the pandemic, and based on the continuing guidance of medical experts, it's in everyone's best interest to play it safe again this offseason. Players on our team are proud to support other players across the league in making an informed decision about their health and their safety, guided by the facts and support from our union. So, the NFLPA is now, with multiple teams, Mr. Sofka, voluntary off-season workouts. We have now found out the Denver Broncos, the Seattle Seahawks, the Super Bowl champion, reigning champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and now the Detroit Lions have all decided that they will not be showing up in person for these off-season voluntary workouts. What are your thoughts?
Well, not to get political, but it's politics. I mean, it's a stance on where we are in the world today, and it's spite, it's vengeance, it's retaliation based on the situation with the extended schedule. You know, it took away one preseason game and they added a regular season game. Well, the players don't like that. They get game checks, so they feel that the pie is all of a sudden they're getting shortchanged. No, if you're making $12 million a year, if you're making $16 million a year, last year you got $1 million every time you played a game. Well, they don't seem to understand, apparently, that $16 million divided by 17 games. Yeah, you're playing another game, but you're still getting the whole pie. Nobody's cheating you out of your last slice of pie. You're still going to get everything. Now, I know there's more risk of injury, but you want to talk about risk of injury. I think it's a stupid idea not to have involuntary workouts, and let me tell you why. If you look at last year, there were a lot of guys going down with injuries. A lot of guys going down on injuries because they didn't get in that football shape. There's one thing to be in shape when you get to camp. There's another thing to be in football shape. You know, we saw what happens when players take a year off or so. Take a look at Rob Gronkowski. Took a year off, didn't get all the workout stuff in, and then he looked okay. I mean, had it not been for his relationship with Tom Brady, I don't think he would have been as effective as he was. And even then, he wasn't the Gronkowski of old. Let me ask you another question. It's one thing if you show up for the involuntary workouts, you're at the team's facility and something happens. You tear a muscle, you hurt yourself lifting weights, whatever. You've got an opportunity now to be salvaged. What I mean by that is you may not get cut because of your injury because you were on the premises. You may have an insurance policy that kicks in. Is it going to kick in when you were definitely performing a football activity at an involuntary workout? Or if you get injured when Tom Brady asks you to go to the local high school, you know, Tampa Prep, to do some workouts off season and don't tell nobody, we're just going to show up and start running. If you get injured, then you can be cut. You can just be, and they can say it's a non-football related injury because it didn't happen right there. So there's a lot of pluses and minuses. There's a lot of ebbs and flows, and depending on where you are politically, you're going to have a different opinion on this as well. I think it's silly. I think it's nonsense. I think it's politics on the grand stage. I think it's politics within the NFL between the CBA and the owners. And I mean the NFLPA and the owners. I just think that it's all silly. It's all stupid. Go to work. Let's all go to work. Let's all get back to work. You can do this safely if you're worried about it. It can be done safely. What do you think you did last year during the year? You didn't follow safe protocols last year? Stop. It's all posturing. It's all peacocking. It's all vengeance. It's all retaliation. It's all politics.
Well, the thing that's hard in all of this is you would think that these things would be set. You've had a year for health and safety protocols. You've had a year to make players feel safe and make the operations staff feel safe and the owners feel safe and everybody involved feel safe. We've had a year to go through this. We've had a year to figure this out. We've had a year to try and understand. We've had a year to look at the data. So it just comes down to working together, figuring it out, and trying to, and like you said, if you get hurt off premise, there's all these things now. If I'm not going to go to a voluntary off-season workout because I don't think the protocol of the NFL is good, and I go throw with Tom Brady at the, by the water at some local field, and I tear my ACL, what's going to happen? So, there's a lot of things that go into this, and when you're on the ground, it's kind of, well, you said it. It's kind of like if you work for a company and you're on premises of the company and you get injured, then you can apply for workers' comp. If you're not on premises of the company, but you're doing work for the company, but at the same time, you're just, you're catching passes and stuff like that. If you get hurt on a random field at a random high school, you're not on premises. So, can you file for workers' comp? Because you weren't there. So, it brings a lot of questions here. I understand people not feeling safe, but at the same time, I go to the grocery store. I go to the movies. I've been to Disney. I've gone to see my friends in different states. I'm careful. I get tested. I do what I'm supposed to do. I follow the protocols. So, to me, it's just, at some point you have to live your life. And amidst all of this, we have to be smart about it. I've talked to people up in Canada who feel like they're drowning. So the reality of it all is we have to be smart. We have to work together. We have to find a way. The NFL was able to get through a season last season and with not many issues from what it looked like. If everything was reported accurately, there weren't many problems. So if you can do that with 32 teams not in a bubble, then we should be able to move forward and do this. But you got professionals doing what they want to do. Not college students who you can lock in the dorm room and say you got to stay here. And not necessarily they could lock them in there, but it's more easy to contain as opposed to being in a situation with professional players that all have their homes and they're not staying on a campus and they do what they want to do and they got their money and this, that, and whatever. So, I would ask the people that aren't coming for voluntary workouts, are you going to clubs? Are you going to bars? Are you traveling? Are you going on vacation? Because if you're doing all that stuff, then you can come to practice. So it is, if you're staying at home and you're doing nothing and your wife just had a newborn baby and you're terrified and you play in the NFL, I get it. If you're partying like it's 1999, doing your thing, having a good old time, and you're on the boat and you're out here and you're out there and you're hanging out with everybody and chilling with your buddies and this, that, and whatever, and you don't want to come to practice, I have a problem with that. Just like I would as a business owner who's like, can I have some time off of work because I'm taking care of my mom, as opposed to, can I go party in South Beach? So it's everybody's got to be treated as an individual because you can never group people together and think everybody's the same. Some people are following protocol, some people are not. But to the people that want to see the season get taken off in a positive way, I just want there to be proper protocol by the NFL, so I call them to do that. And I want the NFLPA to think about the health and safety of their players outside of Corona if they go and do these workouts together randomly in different places, because you can't simulate what the team is giving you. And if you can, I don't know. I just feel like ultimately there's things set in place so that people can be in a structured workout and you try to alleviate the issues. So take the politics out of it, take the BS out of it, and let's just figure out a way that people feel safe coming to work and that they're in a good situation and that we're not having a million workers' comp cases or cases getting denied because players are getting hurt else. I mean, what would you like? I mean, how would you like to hear if you're a fan of the Dallas Cowboys and you find out that Amari Cooper was practicing at in Arlington, Texas, like at a high school, and he tears his MCL and his PCL, just like catching passes from Dak Prescott. So it's, I just hope that things work out. But getting back onto the field, Seamus Reyes is going and making the jump from basketball to tight end. He's not the only one that's done it. Now, he exited high school in hopes that he would play in the NBA. Now, he's going to the Washington football team. He's the first Chilean-born player to make a 53-man roster, too, so shout out to Chile and to South America. Washington signed Reyes, who've been training at IMG Academy in Florida as part of the International Pathway Program. Participants in the program get assigned to a random division, and those teams can then pick one player from a pool of 11 athletes. After he worked out at the University of Florida's Pro Day on March 31st, Washington decided to sign him so that nobody would have a shot. He's 6'6", 260 pounds, and they obviously can't lean on who they've leaned on in the past. Jordan Reed's not there anymore, and when he was there, he got injured a lot, unfortunately. And outside of that, in Vernon Davis, they can't rely on that anymore. So, at 6'6" and 260 pounds, this tight end ran a 4.65 in his 40-yard dash, benched 225 pounds 31 times at Pro Day, but he's never played in a game. Never played in a game. He wanted to play in the NBA. Again, it was his dream since he was 14. And here he is trying to play inside of the NFL. And it's interesting because I've seen people try to play coming from rugby, but that's more to the game, just without pads. He played 2 seasons at Tulane, appeared in 32 games, and averaged almost a point and 1.5 rebounds per game. Before that, he played at Palm Beach State Junior College. He's 25 years old. He last played in 2018 for Tulane. Now, he's been working out in Virginia with his trainer, Justin Kavanaugh. His agent, Tabitha Plummer, said multiple teams wanted to sign him, but Washington was one of the first to go after him. Plummer and Reyes liked how other tight ends have developed under Ron Rivera and tight ends coach Pete Horner. So, here we are. Now, if he makes the roster, as I told you, he's not the first to make the jump, he will join Antonio Gates, Jimmy Graham, Mo Alley Cox, and Darren Fells as former Division I college basketball players who played tight end in the NFL. Oh, yeah. And who I consider, and I think who it's fair to say, more than just me, consider the best tight end in the history of the NFL, Tony Gonzalez also was a basketball player who translated over. So, he did play 1 season of college football at Miami as a grad student, and Washington's been looking for more tight end help as they really don't have anybody leading the charge there. Mike, your thoughts on Seamus Reyes coming from Chile and looking to play in the NFL and follow in the footsteps of Tony Gonzalez, Antonio Gates, Jimmy Graham, Mo Alley Cox, and Darren Fells?
Well, this isn't new where basketball players are sought after and guys that hardly played football or basically never played football as well. But you can look at the same guys in position, in tight end position, recently, in recent years, Rico Gathers, Julius Thomas, Darren Fells. Now, these guys may not blow you away. You mentioned, Gonzalez before. What about Antonio Gates? What about Jimmy Graham? What about Mo Alley Cox, who I did a piece on several years ago, and now all of a sudden he's looking like he may be, the lead guy for Indianapolis. So this is not new. Guys that can box out, guys that can put a body on a guy or take a guy putting a body on you. These guys are larger than life, and so you saw and I might add that Samus Reyes had his pro day at the University of Florida. Florida opened it up to these international players as well. So this is an opportunity for them to see the guy who's the most highly touted tight end, maybe the highest drafted pass catcher. And then on the same field, you see Samus Reyes, and you see him only, 0.2 of a second slower than Pitts. He's got the same build. He's got everything's about the same with these two guys. The difference is Kyle Pitts has excellent game film. Kyle Pitts played for a national title contender, a big D1 type school, and he did well against the top competition in college football, in my opinion, the SEC. That's the NFL South, if you would, or the NFL Junior, or the NFL A team, or minor leagues, or whatever you want to call it. The bottom line is, if you can, like Deion Sanders used to say, if you can ball, you're going to get the call. They're going to find you. If you put yourself out there, whether it's through the international pathway pipeline like Reyes, or if it's at a small school or a large school and it didn't work out, then you went to a second chance you. Everybody has a different path. But when NFL scouts see you and they start licking their chops, and they haven't seen a bunch of your games, and they just see you on the field and you pop out to them on the field, that says a lot about you as an individual athlete as well. So there's a lot of, Jimmy Johnson used to say, I can teach you how to be faster. I can't teach you how to be quick. I can't teach you how to run a 4.3, but I can teach you how to have a nice twitch on you and how to think before your guy that you're covering what his route is, so you can be that much faster. So again, they can't coach speed. You can't coach freakish athleticism, but you can take that freakish athleticism and convert it to playing field. However, once again, like we talked about earlier with quarterbacks especially, it's a high-risk proposition. You can't go into this thing saying, Samus Reyes is going to be a Pro Bowler this year for us. That's why we signed him. You can't do that, because you got to have time for these guys to grow. Some guys are on a shorter learning curve. Some guys are on a longer. Some guys, it may not work out, and their talent and skills may not convert to the NFL game for some reason. We're going to find out in guys like Samus Reyes. So it's exciting to see guys that, weren't the highest touted athletes for football coming out of high school, still not out of college, but now that they have this basketball career and a freakish pro day and the ability, on paper at least, to get the job done in the NFL, you're going to get a lot of attention. You're going to cause a lot of heads to turn, and you're going to get signed. Yes.
Yeah, and it's going to, and that's the thing is, however you get there, we don't all take the same roads to get to where we're going, right? But you push to get there, and you push to find your place. And I hope that all of these players find a place. And speaking of finding a home, Thaddeus Moss, the son of Randy Moss, has found a home, and it's with someone familiar. We'll talk about that right after this fast break on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Inside of the Cafe Kubal studios, you are watching and listening to the Fantasy Football Power Hour, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub on 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York, with my guy, Mr. Mike Sofka of Hall of Fame FantasyFootball.com, and both of us of Winning Fantasy Football. Join the group today, as so many have, and we look forward to seeing you there and talking with you 24/7 as the group allows us to have a constant conversation that goes well beyond everything we do here on Wednesday, which is already a lot that I believe we bring to you every single week, and we're proud to do that. The Wildcat, 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, New York, open 7 days a week for indoor dining, and for takeout and delivery, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvalite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvalite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
Cafe Kubal offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafekubal.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Kubal needs. Cafe Kubal, coffee for the soul.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt, where you're listening. You're watching on Facebook Live, on facebook.com/livenowdt, and on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, all inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. Make sure you head out to Cafe Kubal today at any one of their 5 locations: 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, 208 North Townsend Street, where Cafe Kubal co-works, is also as well as 401 South Salina Street. And you can go to any of those in Syracuse, as well as 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, New York. We're here with Mike Sofka, as we are every Wednesday in hour number 2 of Wake Up Call. You can set it and have it with you every single week, every Wednesday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Brought to you by the Wildcat Sports Pub. We have the Fantasy Football Power Hour with Mr. Sofka of Hall of Fame FantasyFootball.com and both of us of Winning Fantasy Football, the group to join on Facebook, and of course myself, Dan Tortora of WakeUpCallDT.com. Before the fast break, I said that somebody has found a new home. Thaddeus Moss. Cincinnati Bengals have acquired Thaddeus Moss from the Washington football team. Now, Thaddeus Moss was undrafted last year in 2020, spent the entire season on Washington's injured reserve list after they found a foot injury at the scouting combine. Now, Thaddeus Moss was former teammates with Joe Burrow when they were at LSU. They will now be playing together at Cincinnati if Thaddeus Moss is to make the team. Now, the undefeated season in 2019 and a college football playoff championship is what they had when they were together. In 12 games that year, we saw Moss catch 47 passes for 570 yards and 4 touchdowns. He is the son, once again, of Hall of Fame wide receiver Randy Moss, and he's one of 5 tight ends currently on the team's roster. There's also the chance that former LSU teammates could be added to Joe Burrow's team in this upcoming draft, as Jamar Chase is out there, LSU wide receiver, so that could happen as well. And Jamar Chase said, quote, "I wouldn't mind going back with Joe," end quote. So, with that being said, the son of Randy Moss, who catches the balls out there on the field, but is known as a tight end, not a wide receiver, Thaddeus Moss, son of Randy Moss, back with Joe Burrow, and I would imagine that Joe would be hoping and fighting to keep him on the team, as any player that you have a relationship already that you kind of know and you get and you understand, to the tune of almost 50 catches and over 500 yards and 4 touchdowns when they went undefeated with LSU in college football. I would imagine that this is a good move for Joe, a good move for Thaddeus, and a good move for Cincinnati because, as Thor would say, we know each other. What are your thoughts, Mr. Southgate?
Yeah, this might be much ado about nothing. They drafted Drew Sample pretty high a couple years ago, in 19 in the second round. C.J. Uzomah is always the guy who seemed to step in and step up. No matter who was there, whether it was Eifert or whoever was there at tight end, you always saw C.J. Uzomah end up being a steady Eddie guy, but he just didn't wow anybody. Thaddeus Moss might be a bunch to do because of where the Bengals are drafting this year. There's a great possibility they end up with Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts, who they say is the best pass catcher, not just the best tight end, but the best. Everybody, wide receivers, top 5 talent at tight end, hardly ever seen come by. Or they're signing the Thaddeus Moss to be solidifying their tight end room. Maybe they feel confident that they have an Uzomah and Sample, and then bringing Moss into the mix as well. Maybe this is them, showcasing that, hey, we're not going to draft the tight end. We're going to draft another position of need on the team, and maybe Kyle Pitts slips a little bit further. So it just depends on what they do on draft day. It's great to have, your old college buddy. It's great to have that safety valve we used to have in college. But let me ask you something. Why wasn't this guy taken in the same area as Kyle Pitts in the draft? There's a reason for it. He may even be abnormally ranked higher than he should be because of his lineage, because of the blood in his veins being from Randy Moss. And a lot of coaches, players end up doing well because a lot of guys who are players of NFL players, former NFL players, and now they're coming into the draft. A lot of guys like this end up playing real well because they have a lifetime of silent coaching in their ear. When it came time to get ready for high school ball or whatever ball you played, you have somebody who's been there. You have that NFL caliber. You have somebody that knows what it takes to A, make it to the NFL, and B, excel in the NFL, in Thaddeus Moss and his father and Randy Moss. I can't buy that. I can't find that just anywhere. It's luck of the draw. It's what you're born into. He was born into that football family. He's taken advantage of the opportunity. For his sake, I hope he does link back up with Joe Burrow, and I hope they do have some reminiscence, but, on the NFL stage. But you can't count on that. If you could, look at Albert O out there in Denver with Drew Lock. What did he do last year? Well, not a lot. Neither did Drew Lock. So, never know. I don't think Joe Burrow is Drew Lock. I'm wondering if Thaddeus is more like an Albert O, or is he more like a Kyle Pitts? We're going to have to see what they do on draft day, and we're going to have to see when he finally hits the field.
Yeah, so it's definitely something that we will see as we move forward, but I like the fact that, we get to see this happen. I feel like I'm 1,000 years old that Thaddeus Moss, the son of Randy Moss, is playing right now because I'm only 35, but seeing Randy Moss play his entire career and then Thaddeus Moss now be playing in the NFL makes me feel like I'm like 80 years old. So, very crazy. Speaking of feeling old, Julian Edelman retiring at 34. He's about to be 35 in May. Will be the same age for like 5 months. He's ending his 12-year career with the Patriots. Julian Edelman helped the Patriots win 3 Super Bowls, was the MVP of Super Bowl 53, or for those of you playing the Roman numeral game, Super Bowl LIII. But looking at that and seeing, this current situation, that he's decided to leave. Now, I have thoughts, and I'll say those thoughts in a minute, but he has stated that he is retiring, his contract terminated by the Patriots. So, and this is, he said, quote, "It was a hard decision, but the right decision for me and my family. And I'm honored and I'm so proud to be retiring a Patriot. It's been the best 12 years of my life," end quote. He was limited to 6 games last season because of a chronic knee injury. Spent his entire 12-year career with the Patriots. And he is only second in the entire NFL history of every receiver ever, or anybody who's ever caught passes, 118 postseason receptions, is second in the entire NFL history, only to Jerry Rice's 151. Mr. Sofka, Julian Edelman's hanging it up after 12 years with the Patriots. Came in at 22, going out at almost 35. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, he's been a constant. He's been a mainstay. He was a clutch performer for the Patriots. This is a guy who popped off film, especially when they put him in the slot or if he was returning kicks. You know, he had a lot of Wes Welker in him, a lot of Amendola done right in him. You know, had it not been for a couple recent late injuries in his career, he would have continued to put up gaudy numbers. But he's underestimated in his impact on the field. He's top 5 in just about every category. Let me give you a few. Most catches, NFL playoff history. Number 2 on the list. You know who's in front of him? Jerry Rice. Most receiving yards, NFL playoff history. Number 2, Julian Edelman. You know who's in front of him? Jerry Rice. Most 100-yard receiving games, NFL playoff history. Number 2, you know who's number 1? Jerry Rice. Most catches, Super Bowl history. Number 5 on that list. Most receiving yards, Super Bowl history. Number 4 on that list. Most catches in Patriot history. Number 2 on that list. Most receiving yards in Patriot history, regular season. Number 4 on that list. Most all-purpose yards in Patriot history. Number 4 on that list. I could keep going. This is a guy who was a performer. When you got what's arguably one of the best coaches in the NFL and check, ultimate competitor, calling you the guy that it was a pleasure to coach him all these years, and he was always ready, and he knew he can count on it. You're getting a lot of praise, and even though he didn't have the gaudy numbers overall over his whole career like a guy like Jerry Rice did, you could see he's in that company. I think Julian Edelman's a Hall of Fame player. I think, you know, he played until the wheels fell off, and that's what happened. His wheels, you know, he just couldn't overcome the recent injuries. So it is what it is there. Time catches up to you. That's the one thing you can't elude in the NFL is time. So look forward to, you know, seeing what Julian Edelman has next. If not, I'll just, you know, enjoy the career he's provided for everybody so far. Eagerly anticipate his time in 5 or 6 years when he's inducted into the Hall of Fame.
You know, and that was a question I was going to ask you because it was posed yesterday, and I said to wait and hear what Mike and I had to say, and you just answered it that he's a Hall of Famer. You talked about his numbers, so, you know, it seems easy to ask this question now, but, you know, what do you think about the argument that somebody would make that he's not a Hall of Famer?
I would say, where have you been the past 12, 13 years? Didn't you see the connectivity?
Back here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt, as well as on Facebook Live on facebook.com/live-now-dt. Proud to be with you. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt, as well as on Facebook Live on facebook.com/.
What he had to do for the team, whether it's returning kicks, he's made tackles on special teams. This is a guy who is not afraid to be on the field, wanted to be on the field, wanted to show what he could do, the consummate professional, the ultimate competitor. I don't see how you can say that he's not a Hall of Fame player. You know, he's
Oh, and we lost Mike. We lost you there for a second. You cut out. What did you say?
No, I was asking how many rings he has. I think he has 3 or 4 rings. So this is a guy who's a winner. This is a guy who you can put in the Hall of Fame. What about his off-field problems? I haven't heard of any off-field problems, really. So, you know, it's on the field, off the field. He was a professional. He got the job done. Fierce competitor. Belichick says nice things about him, and he spent his whole career with Belichick. So there you go. I don't see how you can say he's not a Hall of Fame.
Yeah, you know, and the thing is, like you said, looking at the numbers, everything he's done, the Super Bowls, and being second only to I mean, it's crazy to think that, you know, and I when I hear stuff like that, it always throws you off that, a guy right now is, second only to Jerry Rice, because in your head it's like, it's Jerry Rice, it's Tim Brown, like you start thinking, you think about Randy Moss and whatnot, but what Julian Edelman has been able to do is put himself only behind Jerry Rice, statistically. And if you're only behind Jerry Rice statistically, then that, to me, that's enough. Plus, you add in the Super Bowls. Now, Greg said he sadly can't be inducted. He never was voted into a Pro Bowl, doesn't meet criteria. As a joke, he said that. 3 rings, Hall of Fame has strict criteria. So, he said that. Yeah, he said he sadly can't. He never was voted into a Pro Bowl. So, looking at, is he and should he be? Absolutely. And the Pro Bowl is, the game is a joke most of the time. So, it's Mike and I have talked about doing different things to it, because like the festivities around it are great, and like the different things they do with the fans are great, and the skills and drill stuff is great, and all that is fun. But the game itself is not a real game, because nobody's going full go, because nobody wants to get hurt. So, with that being said, Julian Edelman being only behind Jerry Rice, this is an open and shut case, Johnson, and they need to put him in there. And so, yeah, Greg just said not a joke. Yeah, Greg, when I read through it, I saw what you were saying there. But yeah, I don't think, Pro Bowl or not, he should be in it. This is ridiculous. So he should definitely be in. But here's my thing, Mike. Here's my question to you. And if this loophole does prevent or whatever, this is what I'm thinking. And I'm not just thinking about this about Julian Edelman. I'm thinking about this about a lot. It's hard to get out of an NFL it's hard to get out of a contract, right? But if you retire and your contract is voided, technically you can mysteriously come back like Rob Gronkowski did. So are we sad that Julian's retiring as a Patriot, but really just going to see him in a few weeks into the season with Tampa Bay?
I'll give you 2 million good reasons why it's not going to happen. Number one, I don't know if you saw the video press release and walked off the field that way. That was just his retirement statement. But if you look at this whole thing from the outside looking in, if you look at this thing where you say, Julian Edelman, possible Hall of Famer here, what direction is he going to go with the rest of his life? It doesn't matter what he's going to do the rest of his life. It matters what he's done in the NFL. It matters what he did on that stage. So, again, in my mind's eye, he's the consummate professional. I think he's going to make it. I don't think Pro Bowls matter. I think he put up the numbers. I think he put up the play on the field when it counted. This is a guy who, hands down, I think he's a first ballot guy. So it just depends on who's going in the class with him here. So I think that there's a chance he could come back, but the 2 million good reasons are, being he was released because of a failed physical, he cashes in a $2 million insurance policy. He couldn't continue his career because of injury. So question would be, he makes the bold move to return, because you have to return that $2 million. So I don't care who you are. I don't care how much money you made. $2 million is a lot of money. So I don't think, watching that government statement he made yesterday, the posturing, the way he made the statement, that he consider that insurance policy being not able to continue his career because of injury. I just really don't see that where he's coming back. I think it's much ado about nothing.
Yeah, and Julian Edelman can get into the Hall of Fame. He's just not available until 2026. He won't be eligible until 2026. 0 Pro Bowl berths and then they look at the regular season, whatever, all that stuff. But Julian Edelman can be inducted into the Hall of Fame by whatever criteria, just not until 2026, which I would imagine that when it's up, we would see Julian Edelman. I would like to think that we would see him go into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But until then, he could always be a Tampa Bay Buccaneer, and stranger things have happened in this world than former teammates of Tom Brady joining Tom Brady again in a different place. Last note here that we have, Mr. Sofka, that I'm not happy about. I have a lot of feelings about this, and a lot on my mind because I think this is ridiculous. But James Conner was never picked back up by the Pittsburgh Steelers. So the Arizona Cardinals gave him a 1-year deal. He's 25 years old. He's beaten leg injuries. He's beaten cancer. God bless, and may he always beat all that stuff. May anybody who has to go through that beat it. James Conner, 25 years old. He'll be paired with Chase Edmonds now with Kenyon Drake being gone for the 2021 backfield in Arizona. They'll share reps, I would venture to say here. Conner is going to reunite with running backs coach James Saxon, who was his position coach in Pittsburgh in 2017 and 18. He received a 1-year, $1.75 million BS contract that pisses me off. I know it's over $1 million, but it's not what this man, I feel like he's earned so much more than a 1-year BS. But anyways, a 1-year, $1.75 million contract, including a $500,000 signing bonus and $1.25 million fully guaranteed. Conner went to the Pro Bowl in 2018 under Saxon after rushing for 973 yards and 12 touchdowns, tied for third most in the NFL that season. Caught 55 passes that year for 497 yards and a touchdown in 13 games. So, here we are. Kenyon Drake signed with the Raiders earlier on in free agency, and the Pittsburgh Steelers made a stupid, dumb, I want to swear but I don't because it's a family show, decision to get rid of James Conner. I know how I feel. I don't know how you feel, but I know how I feel because I covered this guy with the Pittsburgh Panthers, and obviously I cover him in the NFL with the Pittsburgh Steelers. This was their, sacrificial lamb that they threw out there and didn't know what it was going to be when Le'Veon Bell decided to not be a teammate and a team player, and he did everything he could to help him out. With everything that he put forward in his very young career in Pittsburgh, outside of getting hurt here and there, all he did was work his behind off. He made fantasy owners happy. He's one of the top running backs to be drafted, top 10, top 15 right now. Yet here we are in this situation where he's just not wanted. But Arizona said, we'll give him a shot for 1 year. Basically, give him a franchise tag that costs $19 million less and see what he does. What are your thoughts?
Well, the NFL across the board views the running back position as a disposable position. These are guys that get hit every play. And that's because they're blocking when they're not running. And when they're running, they're getting hit. And, a lot of backs try to, make their way out of bounds. But if you look at his stats, if you look at his numbers, he missed 3 games in 19 and he missed 2 games in 20. And he's had some injuries and he's been hobbled. He did have a couple magical years there. Basically he looked like he was a guy that could come on at the end of 17, 18. He had a fabulous year. And that repairs him. Going to Arizona pairs him back up with his former running backs coach, James Saxon. So that he was his position coach in 17 and 18. So what I'm saying is there's an opportunity here for him to share time with Chase Edmonds. He's the bigger back. He's going to get a lot of the inside work. It'll be like the Malcolm Brown to Cam Akers, the Thunder to the Lightning. I don't think you can rely on him to carry the whole load. We've seen this at times where he's struggled to carry the whole load, and that's because as of late and right now, Pittsburgh's offensive line is in horrible shape. So I just think Pittsburgh is pretty keen when they bring guys in, when they let guys go. Pittsburgh drafts well. Pittsburgh doesn't usually let a guy that would go somewhere else and flourish and make them look silly for letting him go. I haven't really seen Pittsburgh making that move.
I haven't either. But at the same time, I feel like this is where, I don't disagree with the move that they made with Le'Veon Bell because he seemed like a head case. And obviously, they look like they were right in that situation. Antonio Brown, they look like they were right in that situation. And hopefully both of those guys are getting better, and Antonio Brown just won a Super Bowl as being, one of the running backs lower on the depth chart, but still with Tampa Bay. But I think this is a mistake. Now, Pittsburgh has Benny Snell, who's young, and Anthony McFarland, who's young, and Jalen Samuels, who's young, and Trey Edmonds, who's young, and Kalen Ballage, they just brought over. So they got a ton of guys. But again, Pittsburgh's got 5 guys. But I look at each of these guys and say to myself, can the 5 of them look like James Conner on his best day? And I don't know if that answer is yes. The 5 of them together, could they equal almost 1,000 yards and, doing what he did, catching the ball in the backfield and this, that, and the other. So that's the thing that frustrates me is that, I'm frustrated by the fact that I don't think they have anybody better on their roster than what he can give them when he's at 100% go. So I agree with the Le'Veon Bell move. I agree with the Antonio Brown move. That was not a Pittsburgh problem. That was a them problem. But James Conner's not a problem. And I don't see how you can't re-sign this man and let him lead this team. So, like with most things in Arizona lately that get left to the wayside, like DeAndre Hopkins and company, I hope that they continue to impress, and I hope that they make everybody pay that let him go. Because DeAndre's in Arizona, J.J. Watt's in Arizona, and now James Conner's in Arizona. Chandler Jones, former Syracuse player, Arizona. I hope that they just, Justin Pugh, who had played on the offensive line at Syracuse and went to the Giants and was drafted really high and this, that, and the other, eventually found his way to Arizona. I hope that James Conner's another player that the Arizona Cardinals are just, yet again, slowly but surely and very quietly building a championship caliber style team. I hope James Conner's the next piece in the puzzle for them. I really do.
Well, he could be. It's just look, you look at Pittsburgh roster, the guy nobody's talking about, and I'll give you a deep sleeper right now, Anthony McFarland. He's already on the roster. Adam Maryland, 4th-round draft pick. This is a guy who, when Matt Canada was promoted to offensive coordinator, he was jumping up and down and singing and everything. You know why? Because he had success under Canada during their time together at the University of Maryland. Again, the familiarity with the coaching style, that position coach got to see him every day in practice, was responsible for him in the meeting rooms and so forth. So you take a look at a long shot like Anthony McFarland. I know Benny Snell's technically ahead of him on the chart, but Anthony McFarland could be that deep sleeper guy. Or maybe Pittsburgh drafts a running back here. Again, you're looking at a guy like Conner, who, 4 seasons in the NFL? That's average. You're averaging 3 to 5 seasons, and the running back position is one of the more disposable positions out there. Long gone are the days where Earl Campbell, Emmitt Smith, these guys who are plug and play, every down backs who have a 10, 12, 15-year career, those days are gone. You're not going to see many running backs do that anymore, especially with the style of play on the field. I know these running backs try to preserve their body, but it's a disposable position. That's why you don't see running backs getting the highest paid contracts. Quarterbacks do. It's the way the system works. It's unfortunate for some guys. Hopefully it'll work out for Conner, like you said, and hopefully it'll work out for a guy like McFarland or whoever Pittsburgh may draft.
Yeah, and if Pittsburgh drafts another running back, that's going to be insanity because they have 5 right now. And Anthony McFarland, looking at what he's doing, Matt Canada was he's the offense coordinator now, but last season he was a quarterbacks coach. He's taken over trying to help out McFarland, who had over 1,000 yards in 2018 under Matt Canada. So we'll see where we go from here to go off of what Mr. Sofka had to say here on the show. Mike, as always, I appreciate it. Talked about a lot of things here, from teams opting out of voluntary offseason workouts in the NFL to, Trey Lance and what he could be inside of the NFL, as well as the Syracuse DBs, James Conner, Thaddeus Moss, Julian Edelman, and so much more, including Mr. Reyes coming into the NFL and trying to join a list of reputable people who played basketball in college and are now trying to play tight end in the NFL. So as always, a great conversation. Don't miss a moment of the action when it comes to the Fantasy Football Power Hour. It's with you every Wednesday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, proudly presented by the Wildcat Sports Pub, exclusively here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. And, of course, the Wildcats on 3680 Milton Avenue in Camillus, 7 days a week. Indoor dining is open. And, of course, for takeout and delivery, call 315-487-2222. 888-866-2222. You can get back the playbacks of these shows by going to the Fantasy Football tab on wakeupcalldt.com. Also going to the Winning Fantasy Football group on Facebook. And, of course, going to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. So plenty of ways to connect with us here live as well as when the show gets archived. And you can always find Mr. Sofka at halloffamefantasyfootball.com. Thank you, as always, Mike, for all that you do.
Well, thank you, Dan. Thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to speaking with you next time.
Sounds good. I'll talk to you soon. That coming from Mike Sofka here where sports truly meets that thing called life. We'll take our final step aside for a fast break. We'll be back right after this to wrap up today's show and get you set for what's coming up on Thursday.
Avicoli's Restaurant, located right at the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road, is proud to be your local neighbor, growing with you for over 20 years. We're open 7 days a week for lunch, dinner, and drinks. For takeout, delivery, or catering, call us at 315-622-5100. When you order online and use our promo code AVS10, you will save 10% on your online purchase at myavicolis.com. And make sure to join us monthly for our live on-site broadcasts centered around Liverpool athletics. Avicoli's, your local, trusted neighbor right at the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road.
Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Campground and where your dog will be staying in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9campground.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to Canine Campground.
Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt where you're listening. You're watching on Facebook Live on facebook.com/livenowdt, and on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. All of it is inside of the Cafe Kubal studios, and you can find them on 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, 208 North Townsend Street, and 401 South Salina Street in Syracuse, as well as on 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, New York. I want to thank my guests, Trill Williams and Afatu Melifonwu, as well as Mr. Mike Sofka and the Wildcat Sports Pub for bringing us the Fantasy Football Power Hour here with us every Wednesday from 10 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, getting you prepared for your fantasy football season all year long. And coming up tomorrow, Papa Joe and I are going to have lots to discuss, as we always do, in our Thursday post from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. every Thursday with PJ. And in hour number 2, that man, Ifatu Melifonwu, will be joining me for an extensive conversation you will find nowhere else, you will hear nowhere else, and you will know nowhere else than right on Wake Up Call. Inside of the Cafe Kubal studios, a sit-down conversation with Ifatu Melifonwu, an extensive conversation with the 2021 NFL Draft prospect out of the School of Syracuse University will join me here in hour number 2. Papa Joe and Ifatu Melifonwu coming to you on Wake Up Call this Thursday, April 15th. Get your taxes in, folks. Have a fantastic day. Find us on Facebook at WakeUpCallDT, Twitter at CallDT, and Instagram at WakeUpCall_DT. In the meantime, God bless, no stress, do your best. I'll talk with you soon.